Happy Halloween. I don't even know if, people our age should celebrate it anymore, but you know what? We are. Kevin's Corner is back. Kevin Bowen, Chris Presley, Rosie Bowen will be an egg for Halloween.
Okay.
Her father will be a slice of bacon. And her mother, I believe, is going to be some toast. So we still got to work on the costume a little bit here, Chris. But, yeah, that is the plan for a Saturday Halloween. Dangerous for the college kids.
Oh, yeah. So are you actually making this costume, or is it kind of a pre-bought?
So I have bought the bacon. I've been baking it's crispy bacon. I've been baking for several years now. The egg needs to be made. We have some felt. My artwork is, about as successful as Philip Rivers sprinting. So it's not very good. So we'll have Mom, Maddie handle that part. And it looks like decent weather. So
yeah.
A little Halloween, daylight savings into a Colts
Perfect
Lions game. Boy, nothing screams fall like that.
Yep.
And then NFL trade deadline. That's probably the biggest topic of the week that we'll hit on today's podcast. As usual, we'll do our 3 keys. Prediction for the Lions game. Last I saw, I think it was 2.5 points.
Correct.
Colts
That's the last I saw as well, yeah.
Interesting. Those lines are going to be, the Colts were touchdown favorites in seemingly 3 of the first 6 games, maybe even more than that. But they were certainly favored in a lot of them. And I really feel like that's going to flip. You're going to see these, field goal lines that you're seeing right now. And then obviously when you get into some of these games in November, they'll probably even be a bit of an underdog in some of those. So have they been I don't think they've been an underdog yet. Was the Cleveland game they underdogs?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember. I don't recall off the top of my head. If so, it would have probably been around 5.5, I would want to say.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't have been anything huge by any means. So we'll give our prediction as the Colts travel up to Motown on Sunday, and then we got about 10 or so Twitter questions to get to as well.
You mentioned it. Election Day, 4 p.m. next Tuesday, as the world awaits certain news. Obviously, football fans will be tuning in and following along on Twitter to see if their teams make any moves. You don't feel like the Colts necessarily should. You want to give us a couple reasons why?
Yeah, and I guess when I say make a move, Chris, I say make a substantial move. And that, to me, is giving up, I'd say a top 5 round draft pick.
Okay.
That's kind of maybe where I throw the cutoff. 6th or 7th rounders, they're pretty much coin flips. You don't see them involved in a whole lot of significant trades. Moving up within a draft is what I'm talking about there. But I guess what I start off with is kind of my general thought process about the NFL trade deadline, which is probably one of the more overhyped trade deadlines in all of professional sports. If you're going to be a buyer at the trade deadline, you need to buy to the point where we are a Super Bowl contending team.
Right.
Whatever breadth, whatever sentence includes the handful of teams that can be hoisting it come February, you need to be in that sentence. And if you are a move away, okay, I can buy. And so I guess, again, I just wanted to get that out there of just like, that's kind of my general thought about being a buyer at the deadline. The seller can get a little bit finicky. I thought the Colts should have sold in 2017 when they were a terrible football team. But basically, I think the Colts should pretty much stand pat. Obviously, if you can sell Jacoby Brissett, that, but I don't think that's happening. So let's start here with how improved would you get, Chris? I would say a surprise as we approach the midway point of the season is the tier of Baltimore and Kansas City that we all thought coming into the year, or at least I thought. To me, that tier, Pittsburgh and Tennessee are in that tier as well.
Yes.
Certainly Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And
I think Tennessee is, but the Taylor Lewan injury and now with their schedule toughening up, we'll see how they can hold up, especially with playing so many games the rest of the year with an early bye. But still, the AFC has gotten better at the top. And so I look at it and say, would this move push you to the top of the AFC South? Would this move push you to winning multiple games in the month of January? And in my opinion, that's unlikely. Again, another caveat I'd probably say about if you're a buyer at the deadline, I also have this little, especially given that there's uncertain future at quarterback. That is always front of mind for me as well. Would adding another wideout or a more proven pass rusher, help this team? Sure, but if you're going to all of a sudden make a move that gets you into legit conversation of being an AFC contender, to me, you're giving up way too valuable resources for what you need to address at some point very soon, potentially next April. So I guess that kind of leads into my next point of there is that long-term quarterback question that is definitely in limbo. From what I've seen from Phillip Rivers, he has not played at the level to where I would bring him back without even a seed of doubt. That's me talking, not the Colts talking. I expect them to bring him back. But, again, with that sort of carrot dangling, there's like a domino effect that if you're spending a precious draft pick on a short-term rental that probably isn't going to push you into that top tier of being a legit contender, then that's the issue that I have with, again, the long-term quarterback answer, because you're constantly in search for it. And when you're constantly searching for it, any sort of move will be scrutinized based off kind of that decision that must be made at some point. It's like the DeForest Buckner thing. Yes, a great player and has played at an all-pro level. But when you don't have the most important position solved, and you were drafting at 13 at the time, closer to trade up, potentially for a Herbert or a Law or a Tua, that's where things get a little bit more scrutinized.
Right.
In that scenario. And then I would say lastly, it just comes down to the future resources are a bit more scarce than they were in previous off seasons. You know, Chris Bauer did such a great job in those early drafts, 2018 and 19 off seasons, of trading back, getting that extra second-round pick. You know, you had the Jets, you had Washington involved in that. You don't have that anymore. So you don't have a copious amount of cap space either, and then it's kind of an uncertain cap future right now with what that's going to look like and all of the free agents that we've talked about here in 2021 coming up as well. So I just don't think the Colts are in the same position they were in 2019 or, even 2020's draft with having that additional second rounder. So if you're giving up a fourth rounder for a short-term rental, and I don't think that move is all of a sudden going to put you in a Super Bowl spot and you bow out early in the playoffs, now you get to April, and if you've got to give up a first and a third or a first and a second or something like that, now you're only draft, and we know Chris has had great success in the fourth round especially, and with some of those third-round picks. So when you think about the cap space situation, Leonard, Nelson, Smith, those guys getting long-term deals as well, you just aren't in the same sort of spot. So that's kind of my thought process on it. You have any thoughts, any questions, I guess, or?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly, and as always, if people want to go and read more into what you just spoke about, they can go to 1075thefan.com. The article's up. You have other articles up as well. One thing I did see, and obviously a team that we're playing this weekend in Detroit Lions did make a move for Everson Griffin.
Yeah.
Correct me. He won't be able to play against the Colts.
Correct. Yeah, that's another thing to mention. You've got this 5-day protocol with COVID that, when these trades happen, again, you've got to sit for 5 days. And I think there's some level of quarantine and testing that has to happen. So I think that plays into it as well. That's why we're starting to see some early trades here before Tuesday's deadline, like you said, at 4. And, I'm curious, Chris, if the Colts make a notable move, which I would consider the Everson Griffin move notable. I don't think what San Francisco did to get Jordan Willis is that notable. The Yannick Ngakoue news certainly falls into the notable category. I'd be curious of how win now is that move. How much is that like Detroit? They're 3-3. They are not a realistic playoff team in my opinion. But Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are on the hottest of hot seats.
True, yeah.
So if the Colts make a move Frank, Chris, that's not like you guys to make that move. And it sucks because you have to come to the reality of admitting that, man, I don't really feel like that is going to be the move that gets us into that category. And that's a tough realization to come to. And there are teams that panic and make those moves. But I'm just not going to jeopardize a limited amount of draft capital that you currently have with the thought process that you could and need to trade up for a quarterback. Obviously, wide out pass rusher. The Colts need to upgrade there. And who knows? Maybe Michael Pittman's a jolt. Maybe Kamoko Turi is your jolt, and that's kind of like your pseudo trade deadline moves. But it's just precious capital, especially when you think this team's going to win whatever. They're going to finish here above 500. I think we all believe that. Well, if that's the case, you're going to be drafting a little bit later, so moving up is going to cost you
Correct.
a little bit more as well. So, yeah, selling, maybe. Brissett, we had that question on Monday. Walker, I guess, is the other name. Again, I still don't think that would happen. In an ideal world, I think you'd move Jacoby Brissett. That's me, again, talking, not the Colts. But, yeah, the whole buying thing, it's tough. I like aggressiveness, and at times I think it's necessary, but I just don't see this football team being there with the thought of you need those resources for the future quarterback.
Right. And you mentioned it. It could be a jolt. Fans always like to make some sort of splash, something different in the season. Let's just hold off. Let's wait for that splash, if it does happen, to come during the draft.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. And 7th or 6th rounder, I probably won't lose too much sleep over that. But you start getting into 5th, 4th, that's when I still think you're in a decent enough position, Chris, to where, let's say you're drafting 20 and you move to 5 or 8 or something like that. You're going to give up a decent amount. You might give up a future like a 2022 pick, but I still think you could have enough of the cupboard to where you can go get a future tackle in the 3rd round or something like that. Go find a wideout. It seems like wideout classes continue to be deep. The Colts have struggled drafting wideouts, but still. Yeah, I don't think Chris and Frank feel that immense amount of pressure either internally to make the Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia move that we saw the Lions make with Everson Griffin. So, yeah, should be fun just because there are some deals that come out of left field that, the Cowboys are selling and the Lions are buying. Like, who would have thought that? You do get teams showing their cards a little bit. But I don't think the Colts will make a notable move, and I don't think they should.
To play devil's advocate, do you think this year's college football season is any indication that, like they did with DeForest, you know what you're getting instead of going for a pick? Does the lack of certain film on some guys later in the draft make you trade that pick for what you've already seen on NFL game film?
That's fair. Yeah, it is fair. But not enough to wheel and deal, It's just, again, a 6th or 7th rounder, okay. But, when you get in the 5th, you get in the 4th, and I also think you can look at the draft one of two ways this year. Yes, that's one way to look at it, of the film this year might not be as level ground evaluating as it has been in years past, but then that, to me, leaves the room for guys to fall through the cracks as well.
True.
You've got a Wisconsin kid that might only play 4 or 5 games if they're going to have a shortened season or whatnot, or what do those Pac-12 kids look like where they might have a little bit of a shorter season. So you can kind of look at it both ways, but knowing Chris Ballard and how much he loves the draft picks, and then also knowing that you still have the future quarterback, you're in purgatory, which to me is hell. I want as much as I can get.
Cool. All right, well, you answered, I think, a lot of people's questions as they're listening to the podcast. Do we want to jump into some that have been asked over Twitter?
Yes.
All right, well, let's kick things off with RC, who asked, where is Hines? There were a lot of expectations for him this season. Is he underperforming, or am I getting a bad read on that?
From a playing time standpoint, RC, he has not been on the field anywhere near as much as he was week 1, which is interesting because you had Mac, healthy at least for a couple series. I want to say his play time is it's like right around 30% over the past month or so, which it was over 50 if I'm not mistaken week 1. Now certainly Jonathan Taylor's taken on a much more expanded role. And remember when Mac went down, Chris, I was like, everyone was probably scrambling to pick up Hines in fantasy leagues, and I was like, when Mac has gotten hurt in years past, it hasn't all of a sudden mean Hines skyrockets in playing time. His yards per carry number is still really low. Like, Taylor started to run the ball better. I think it's 4.5 over the past month or so. I want to say for the season, Hines is like at 3, which that's kind of been him in his career. He's not been a great yards per carry guy. So I would like to see him more involved in the pass game still. We have yet to see him give you the offensive jolt that he showed at NC State. He was not drafted in the 4th round purely for special teams.
Correct.
He was drafted in the 4th round because he was this explosive guy at North Carolina State. So, yeah, RC, I am a little bit surprised just because I felt like from a body number standpoint that he would maybe see a little bit of an increased role, but that's kind of been Reich's MO, that he hasn't all of a sudden taken a huge jump in playing time. But maybe if they do go up tempo, maybe if they do some no huddle stuff, he is a guy that'll factor in more.
Kevin Tanner wants to know, what do you think this line looks like with a healthy Toure, and how does he fit?
Yeah, well, I'll start off by kind of reiterating what I said on Monday of, this could be a couple weeks with Toure. We'll see what he looks like in practice. He did practice today. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. So, maybe plays against Baltimore, but that would be 6 practices before. I don't expect him on Sunday against Detroit, but I stress maybe there. What does the line look like with him? I don't play him on first or second down. I just don't think he's a great early rundown player. And I want to save his legs for the pass down. So my 3rd down package would be him, Buckner, probably Autry and Houston. So I would take out Muhammad and put Toure in there for him. You get creative. We still haven't seen the dime package from the Colts a lot this year where that you have the 6 defensive backs. I think Green Bay, for example, I think would be a great time to use kind of a 3-2-6 to where it's maybe Buckner, Houston, and Toure, and then the 2 linebackers. Because Autry isn't giving you the pass rush production that you thought he should give you, earlier in the year. So, yeah, that's how I look at things. But, edge, rush, speed, bend, get off. We talked about all that on Monday's pod. But certainly 15 to 20 snap, 3rd down rusher. That's how I see him fitting as kind of a rotational guy up front.
Mm-hmm. This one comes from Chuck, who asked, how many more losses will the Colts have at this point if they had traded superstar guard Quentin Nelson for assets in the upcoming draft prior to the start of the season and replaced him with a league average guard?
Whoa. Jeez. Oh, Chuck. Okay. I wonder what Chuck I wonder what's in Chuck's coffee. How many more losses would the Colts have if they traded away Quentin Nelson? And wouldn't be getting anything in return right now. So it'd literally just be Quentin Nelson's gone and Danny Pittner's your starting left guard or something like that. Maybe one more loss. You killed the Vikings.
Right.
You killed the Jets.
Yep.
That Bears game was not as close as the score indicated. So I maybe lose to the Bengals. But having said that, I don't think there's been that many games to where your run blocking's been that good to where it's like a Kansas City performance from last year or a Houston performance in that wild card game a couple years ago. So I'm not looking at it and being like, man, that run game literally won you the football game.
Yeah.
I don't think the run game has been literally non-existent. It hasn't been good, but there's still been a couple moments, but not enough for me to be like, that's the difference between a win or a loss. Now, obviously, pass protection-wise, the Colts have been really good this year. They lead the league in pass protection right now, and with a far less mobile quarterback than the one they had a couple years ago when they led the league. But, the Colts haven't really played that many truly close games late that they've pulled out.
Yeah.
Cincinnati would be the only one I would throw in there. So, yeah, maybe one loss, Chuck.
All right, here's a fun one from Coco, who says, you can have any skill position player in the NFL, but you still have Phillip Rivers at quarterback. You're on the 7-yard line with time for one more play. Who do you choose? Where do they line up? And what play do you call?
Damn. This is a good one. Coco, great question. I love multiple options. I'm a big believer in that. I've thought to myself, okay, Notre Dame, Clemson in a couple weeks. If there's a big play on the goal line, what do I want to see? Okay, I'll maybe want to see Book, give it to Williams, have a read option element. Book's legs can make a play. Michael Mayer, show me something to tie it. So 7-yard line, that limits me in multiple options. I like running guys kind of off routes and things like that. So when I'm at the 7, flat out, I would love to isolate a wideout and hope to get man and have that wideout win. I like a back shoulder type of throw of, can you give some sort of, I'm showing potentially something down the middle, I'm showing something that could be fade, and the corner is reading that big time, loses some leverage, and then boom, you hit him with the back shoulder. Who would I take? The names that always are kind of top of mind, and the first name hasn't had as great of a year, but Julio and Hopkins are the two that I immediately think of. Who's a really good catcher of the football contested is the kid that the Colts will see this weekend, Kenny Galladay.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't be up there, but, boy, he made some catches on Sunday against the Falcons that was like, holy shit.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would probably say Julio or Hopkins. Devontae Adams is another name that I like as well. Tight ends, I don't know. Am I forgetting somebody? The shifty wideouts, I just can't. Tyreek Hills of the world, and
my bias is going to go with Kamara.
Yeah, but with him, I'm dumping it short of the goal line, and I hate taking that risk.
And he has to make the play. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I love multiple options. I love Michael Thomas on the field, and you could potentially dump it as well.
True.
But I really want to throw the ball into the end zone, and that's kind of a 50-50-ish proposition in my eyes. So. Yeah, Julio or Hopkins.
Okay. All right, Colin asks, why does Eberflus and Baker not stick with Tyquan at the defensive end spot when he excels very well there? He says, I know that the Colts want him at defensive tackle position, but at this point we have questions long-term at the D-end position. My brother and I have been banging the drum for Tyquan to go to defensive end after the flashes he's shown his rookie year.
Colin, I actually think inside is his better spot. I think outside Tyquan is still more of a power rusher. Early downs, I could see him outside. But third down, no. I've got enough bull rushers. Give me the 99-mile-per-hour fastball. He had some crazy production against the Bengals. It's something I put in yesterday's notebook, Chris. He had 5 tackles and 21 snaps.
Yeah.
5 tackles off the bench. Most tackles for a Colt reserve defensive lineman since 2011. You remember the name Drake Nevis?
Yes.
He was one of my favorite players. Just a happy dude, too. I miss Drake Nevis. I don't know what happened to him, but he didn't pan out. But he had some moments. He was one of the names on this list I was looking up anyways. All right, back on track here. So you go back and watch the 5 tackles. A couple of the plays, he's totally unblocked. And then I look at his production earlier in the year. I think he had played like 60, 70-some snaps and had 2 tackles. So, yes, really good against the Bengals. But again, you got to take the full 6-game sample size so far for Lewis. So, I think he's a really solid kind of fifth defensive lineman. You need those guys. You rotate bodies. You're one injury away from him playing a whole lot. But I'm just not – maybe he plays a little bit more over Autry early on in a game. But on third down, I don't necessarily – I guess maybe a little bit over Autry, but still I'm not ready to say that with just a whole lot of confidence yet.
All right, Cody wants to know, would you inquire about Quinnen Williams? Feels like it's top talent for a lot less than the talent that you would get.
Yeah, what are the Jets doing? Like, are they just, are they gonna trade everybody here? Like, is this fire sale like none other?
When I saw that, I'm like, are you kidding me? You just drafted this kid
third overall
last year?
He had a great game last week. I didn't watch much of it, but had a little scratch on Buffalo and knew that he was doing something there. So, my only worry here, Cody, is just, am I giving up another first-round pick for a defensive tackle when he probably ideally plays DeForest Buckner's position? I don't think he's a true nose. So, I think he can still be a really good player in this league. But, sooner or later, you've just got to start investing those top. I would assume it's going to take a first rounder to get them. It's going to take a quarterback, wideout, left tackle, like just these premier positions. And for your defense, you've obviously invested a whole lot in Buckner already.
Yeah.
So nothing against Quentin Williams, although I don't know how his effort, it seems to be a question with him, would play in a Matt Eberflus defense. But no, I'm good there.
This one's from JJ. Says the Colts have the 3-3 Lions and then 4 games against good teams. What do you predict for the Colts record for those 5 games? And what percentage, would you put that they lose all 5?
Lose all 5. Wow. Yeah, lose all 5. Well, I mean, 10%, 5%. Like, any team that goes on a 5-game losing streak in the NFL, it's notable, let alone a team that has shown you, better than competent football for long stretches here in 2020. Yeah, I know it's tough, but, they're favored to beat the Lions. And then, you would like to think Tennessee at home is close to a coin flip, probably Tennessee a slight favorite.
Right.
Green Bay, I can't see them being favored by more than 3.5, something like that. Those are still game. Baltimore at home, again, them being favored by more than about 4, especially coming off a very physical Pittsburgh game. So, yeah, winning 1, you would hope. What do I predict the Colts' record for those 5 games? Again, it's game-by-game predictions is so difficult when you're saying it 5 weeks in advance for some of these. 2 I'll say 2 and 3, 3 and 2 is kind of where I'm torn on. I think at the start of the year I had them beating the Lions, beating the Ravens, and beating the Titans at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stick with that. But there's a reason we do this Wednesday podcast every week, JJ, where I give an actual game prediction for that game when I know injury situation, how that team played the week before, things like that. So, check back the next 5 Wednesdays or whenever we do the second part of the week.
Jordan from Texarkana has another question for the podcast.
Oh, he's back again.
Back again. He was just wondering, are the Colts not good at scouting wide receivers? He says, I love my team, but I often wonder how we drafted Paris Campbell over DK Metcalf, and next year we drafted Pittman over Claypool.
Whiteout acquisition in general, Chris, has been pretty pitiful for this franchise since about 2013. And you think about it. The free agent names is a haunted house. Hayward Bay, Nix, Andre Johnson, Kamar Aiken, Devin Funchess. I'm sure I'm forgetting 1 or 2 that people just don't even want me to name, so be thankful I'm forgetting them. Drafting-wise, Moncrief round 3, Dorsett round 1, even your latter round picks. The Kane, Reese Fountain. Reese is a 5th-round pick. You see 5th-round picks around the league at least play more than Reese, has played now into his 3rd season there. So, I know some people are like, it's way too early on Desmond Patman, but we'll just focus here with the Campbell and the Pittman thing. Campbell, the drafting of Campbell was strictly for skill set. DK Metcalf is not what how the Colts looked at is this. We've got the big body in Funchess. You've got a guy you still think is the number 1 in TY. We need the slot. We need the speed guy. So I understood that. And both of these things can be true. The Colts have been poor at acquiring wideouts. That is true. And secondly, the whole draft game that you play of could have drafted this person over that, it's just a hindsight 2020 game. The Colts could have drafted Andy Isabella as well. He was in that range. It's DeAndre Hopkins is 5 picks after Bjorn Werner. Well, let's look at who was taken after Darius Leonard. It's such an easier game. But having said that, again, I think they've been poor at it. The Campbell thing, I think if healthy, he gives you something. It's just injuries, I think, have played into more of these last 2. The whole Claypool thing, and listeners of this podcast know full well, and Joey and I still text about it today, just what I think of Claypool. Honestly, going back to that earlier question about who would I want 7 yards out, Claypool would be on a 15-person list for me. He just 50-50 balls. I trust him more than so many other people. And if you watch, and I think we all watched that Pittsburgh-Tennessee game a lot on Sunday, he's much more of a gadget guy. Hell, he's covering kicks. Chase Claypool is on special teams. Like, that's kind of his thing, is he can fill kind of these different niches, but is he 100 snap? And they don't need him to be 100 snaps right now. Is he 100% snap wideout? I think there's still some development there. So that's why I believe Pittman was more of a polished guy in how the Colts viewed it. Now, Claypool has been really, really good in several games. He had some other games where he just hasn't been much of a factor there. So I'm still going to say, like, let's hit a little bit of the pause button. Yes, Metcalf, stud. Injuries have played into it, but at the same time, we can sit here and say this team, free agency and draft-wise, has just not gotten it done in the old wideout evaluation.
Yeah. All right, just a few more Twitter questions here. This one's from John, who has a stat for you. It says, not counting Jacksonville, with Darius Leonard on the field through 2.5 games this season, opposing offenses have scored 21 points. In the 2.5 games without Leonard, opposing offenses have scored 57 points. It's looking increasingly like Eberflus defenses doesn't work without players at the 3-tech, slot corner, and the will linebackers. Does this foreshadow a Buckner-like payday coming for Leonard and more?
Well, John, I do have to stop you and say, here's a stat for you. Not counting Jacksonville, you just can't ignore it. I mean, that was a game. It counted. It counted as a loss, and your defense was absolutely terrible. So I can't go just fully there yet. Leonard's presence, it's interesting, Chris, because it's like, when you say that, well, Leonard, the games he was on the field for, you also played the Vikings and the Jets. So I know that comes off of, like, are you questioning Darius Leonard and what he means to the defense? He means a whole lot, but we've talked about it before. When Leonard has been healthy this year, we haven't seen the splash plays.
Right.
No sacks, no turnovers, 2 tackles for loss. The bar that Leonard has set, when healthy, he has not gotten to that bar this year. Hasn't really been close to it. And again, he has set the bar higher than arguably any linebacker has ever set it in NFL history through 2 weeks. So that's rare for him. And, he's back to practice today, and I expect him to play. But he's still going to get paid a whole lot because he does give you the splash plays, and he gives you a work ethic that they absolutely love. And, going back to what I was saying earlier about, talking to Joe Wrights about it, there is kind of an energy level that he brings as well that you shouldn't have to need that to play well. But, I do think that is a small factor in things right now. So his return comes at a critical time because you talk about quarterbacks that can make plays with their legs. Tannehill, even Rodgers, obviously Lamar Jackson, obviously Deshaun Watson. You really, really want him back in the lineup. So
absolutely.
To say it's looking increasingly like Eberflus' defense doesn't work without players at 3-tech, slot corner, and will linebacker. Yeah, I mean, Okereke and Walker, I don't think it played that poorly for you. You'd rather have Leonard out there, but to me, giving up the 24, giving up the 20, yeah, Leonard, maybe saves you a possession here or there, but even if you're giving up 17 and a half, that's still not great. So he's going to get paid, but I don't think it's necessarily just because we're looking at a 2.5 game sample size when, you're playing the Vikings, Jets, and an anemic Bears offense.
Yeah. All right, we've got a hypothetical question from Drew, who says, I'm not saying Ballard should do this, but what do you think Mike Evans' trade value is? With Tampa Bay signing Antonio Brown and Evans' production already low at around 25 receptions and under 400 yards, do you think he might be on the block or traded?
No, I don't. I don't think it at all. I mean, why are good football teams going to give up good football players? I don't. And what, you're banking on Antonio Brown? I mean, if Antonio Brown makes it to November 10th, it'll be a miracle.
Yeah, true.
And I know Chris Godwin, I think, is a little banged up. I mean, they've been a little banged up, including Evans at the wideout position. So what would his trade value be? Again, I would assume a first-round pick. I mean, he's still very young, or barely on that second contract. So, yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay's squarely in the mix for a Super Bowl run. And I think what we're seeing in New England, you need to give Brady a lot around him. You know, Cam Newton obviously doesn't have a whole lot around him, and
right.
we're seeing him wilt a little bit. So Tampa Bay knows that they need a lot of skill talent, and Mike Evans is a very unique body type, and just because he hasn't played a whole lot or hasn't produced a whole lot, which I have him on several fantasy teams.
As do I.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and his value, I think, going back, like you said, to the previous question of that 7-yard line play, your list of 15, he's probably on there, if not close. So his value is around whatever you put towards that question.
Yes, and that's a really good point. So, again, teams are going to be slotted into buying and selling, and Tampa Bay, you don't sign Tom Brady and become a seller.
Right. Okay, the last one this week comes from CW. If Michael Thomas is really on the trade block, would you go for it if you were Chris Ballard? And what do you think it would take to make it happen?
Well, obviously, a lot of these questions, Chris, this week with the trade deadline. I would assume it's taking a first rounder. You know, he's not that old. I think he's still a couple years away from 30. But, you know, when you're punching players in practice, huge contract you're absorbing, you probably sit that one out.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these players, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, great players. Great players. You'd love them on your football team. But it's, you know, things are not just a Madden video game. And so, love his consistency and reliability on the field. I probably want a little bit more of a freak athlete if I'm going to give up a first-round pick. So knowing what you have at quarterback, because, again, you're going to be drafting late. That's something I was thinking about earlier today of what the Polian era did so well for several drafts was hitting on picks outside of the top 10. Freeney, Clark, Wayne, Sanders. I'm sure I'm missing some, but just several years in a row. And, like, I hear it from people at times, like, it's hard to hit on those picks. Damn right it's hard. But when you do, you can build crazy terms of sustained success long term. And the Colts clearly did that in the 2000s while obviously having the early picks of Edgerrin and Peyton. And, you know, even if you go a couple of drafts before that, Tarek Glenn wasn't a top 15 pick. At least I don't think he was. It wasn't top 10. Marvin Harrison, the same. Like, you were still able to hit on picks even before Peyton got here. So what I'm getting at is just because you're drafting late in the first round, if you can hit on that pick and they become whatever, then I mean, even an A.J. Brown start to a rookie career. Yes, that's beautiful. You're getting a rookie contract in your own system and a guy that's a very impactful player. So yeah, no, I'm not doing it.
And my only addition to that is if Michael Thomas is throwing punches against teammates when he's got Drew Brees as his quarterback, you don't think he's throwing punches in Indy with Phillip Rivers? You don't think that frustration level is going to be there here?
Yeah, I was going to say arm strength is definitely not in New Orleans either. Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, punching, boy, I can't think of the last time. Punching players in practice doesn't good. And I know at times that we always make fun of, okay, horseshoe guy, this and that. Sooner or later, you just need some dudes. Yes, I tend to agree with that more than just, again, a bunch of Community Monday sort of things. But still, when you don't have that quarterback long-term piece solved, and Pittman and Campbell, no one is, I think, writing them off. That would be unfair. Do you still need to make sure you're looking long and hard at wideouts? Yes. Mm-hmm. But I think writing them off at this point is still a bit premature. Campbell, I know the injury concern is real. But again, Pittman, let's watch him play these final 8 games and see what he got.
Cool.
Or 10 games, whatever you're at.
Well, that does it for Twitter questions this Sunday. Back at it after the bye, 1 o'clock, CBS, Colts at Detroit. Kevin, let's get to your 3 keys.
How about Michael Grady on the sideline?
Love that.
Andrew Catalan, James Lofton, Michael Grady on the call. Key number 1 to me, Chris, we talked about him earlier, plan for Kenny Galladay. This is a big wideout dude. This is an emerging star. He needs to get paid. He made some stupid catches last week, and probably last year too. You know, bigger wideouts. You know, we saw Allen Robinson make some plays a few weeks ago. This is one of the better wideouts the Colts will see all season long, and this can be this can be kind of what Cleveland did a few weeks ago. Frustrating. You feel like you got blanket coverage, and that dude makes some plays for you. So I would say the plan for him staying a wideout, key number 2 is just your wideout stepping up. Obviously, we've talked a lot about T.Y. Hilton. Phillip Rivers played against Matt Patricia last year. It wasn't pretty. Not one of his better games last season. This is a team that will press the hell out of you. Think New England defense.
Right.
When you think what they have, Jeffrey Okudah has really struggled, having said that, as a rookie corner. But still, they're going to give you a lot of press. So if Pittman can give it a go, what does he give you there? Is Marcus Johnson a flash in the pan, or is this going to continue? Things like that. And obviously Hilton falls into that category. And then lastly, I would just say, getting off to an early start, the Lions have outscored teams, I think it's by an average of 5 points in the first quarter of games this season. That's pretty notable. Yeah. And then you look at it, and there is Detroit kind of hanging around. And I don't know, man. I just have such a bad memory of the game here at Lucas Oil, week 1, when Chuck, some sort of time error, and Stafford let him down the field for a late touchdown. Well, I forget the year, 2016 maybe rings a bell, something like that. Hell, it would have been the last time you played the Lions. So yeah, it would have been 2016. We saw it last week. I mean, you give Stafford a chance, this dude will make you pay. So the early start is critical because they are getting outscored in every other quarter. So that's something that they do well. And I think coming out of the bye week, considering how you've played the last 2 weeks defensively, that's a big emphasis for me.
Yeah, and we know he'll sling it.
He'll sling. I mean, dude, I think it's the best quarterback the Colts have faced all year.
I do too.
Baker maybe gave you a few more issues outside of the pocket, but this is a really good quarterback. I mean, think of the QBs now down the stretch. Stafford, Lamar Jackson, Ryan Tannehill, Aaron Rodgers, Ryan Tannehill, Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson again, I believe, Big Ben, and the Colt killer Gardner.
Yeah.
Those guys can play the game of football decently well at the quarterback position. I mean, so great test. And we talked about it on Monday. I love it. We'll hype it up even more next week. I'm taking the Colts here, 24-23. I think it'll be close. I think the Colts get the 4-minute drive late and don't give Stafford that chance to get the ball back.
Like it.
Man, you really need it.
You do.
You really need it. Knowing what's coming up, which I can't wait for. I think fans should be very excited to watch this football team here in the month of November. This is what you love. We're here. You're getting some guys healthy back as well. No Mo Alley-Cox at today's practice. So it looks like he might still miss this week, but they haven't put him on IR, so I'm like, well, he can't be too far off. So, yeah. You like Colts this week? Or are you nervous?
I had Colts 27-24.
Okay.
Going back, looking at what both offenses average per game, what both defenses give up per game, I do get nervous, like you said, with the arm strength and the trust that Matt Stafford has. Don't want them to have the ball last, that's for sure. Did pick Colts 27-24, hoping Rodrigo gets a nice late game field goal and we just hold on to things.
Hey, he's kicking inside and no fans.
Yeah.
Detroit is like Chicago in the no fan zone there. And I don't think the Lions are good, but they're good enough to scare you. And the Colts, I think, are good, but they're also scary enough to scare you in a bad way. Like, the Colts can lose this football game. Like, I am not in the capacity of I think when the schedule came out earlier in the year, I was like, people will chalk this up as an automatic win, and I've thought about it for about 5 minutes. Like, I'm still thinking about it. Obviously, 24-23 is not that big of a gap. So,
to your credit, going back to the original Beers with Bowen, going into the season, I stopped you when the schedule came out. I asked you, I said, Kevin, circle one or two of those games that you could see going an opposite way, and the Lions were one of your picks that you had the Colts winning, but you said, I could see Detroit winning that game as well.
Yeah. I think we forget. I mean, Stafford was a number 1 overall pick. I mean, this is a very good football player when healthy. Last year, they had success when he was healthy. So, I'm excited for Sunday. The bye week is refreshing, but then I'm like, damn, let's play some football.
Yeah.
So I'm ready. Halloween hangover for those people out there. It won't be for Kevin Bowen, Rosie Bowe, the egg. We'll have her not scrambled, not a scrambled egg by any means, but yeah, we'll get out. We'll do our little thing Saturday. Are you in the Halloween boat? Do we have a costume for Chris Presley?
Do not have a costume. This year I will be going down to Cincinnati. My buddy's child's getting baptized on Sunday, so we're just going to take it easy. Huge Notre Dame fan, so we'll probably just stick in, watch some football, take it easy, be refreshed so that at 11:30 when the baptism happens the next day, we're good to go.
Irish Yellow Jackets this Saturday. Georgia Tech, top 5 fight song in college football. It's a great fight song. Give a listen to it.
The Rudy
when
game.
you get a chance.
The Rudy game. He got the sack or the tackle against Georgia Tech, right?
Great point. Great point about that. I've actually talked to Georgia Tech's head coach, and now Jeff. What the hell's his name?
Younger guy, right?
He's from Temple. God, you could tell how riveting the conversation was. I talked to him about Rock Yassin. Now I got to look this up. I'm so mad that Georgia Tech doesn't run the option anymore when they had Paul Johnson.
Yeah.
Jeff Collins.
Okay.
Yeah, he did a great job at Temple there. All right, man. He's Chris Presley. I'm Kevin Bowen. Everybody have a great weekend. Next week, Monday and Wednesday pod. And remember, 2 weeks from tonight, Beers with Bowen. We'll plug it here over the next couple weeks. Mid-season review. Right before the Titans game. The night before that Titans Thursday nighter, we'll be giving away a $250 gift card to the Colts Pro Shop.
Correct.
And a few other prizes as well. So make sure you guys are tuned into that. We'll have some details up on the website very shortly. Everybody have a great week. Safe Halloween, and we'll talk to you Monday.